Hi there. It's October the 20th, and we're continuing our journey through Paul's first letter to Timothy, and we are in chapter 5, reading the whole of the chapter from verses 1 to 25. There's a lot in this chapter really about relationships and how people relate to one another in the community of Messiah Jesus. And in the first part, Paul is speaking about how people should be treated, and particularly how Timothy should be treating people as a leader. As a leader, he is to treat older men as fathers, older women as mothers, younger women as sisters. And the important thing here is that he's not talking about treating people as though they were part of a machine, as they were part of a system. He's talking about addressing people, talking to people, dealing with people as in a family. And in particular, he homes in on the issue of widows. Now, widows in ancient society, particularly in Paul's day, were some of the most needy people in the society, because when a widow died, if she was left without provision, she had no means of support, no means of finding other help. And the widows were some of those who the community of Jesus were most concerned to help. After all, the Old Testament makes it clear again and again that God has a special heart, a special place for widows and orphans. And therefore we see in Acts 6, we see particularly the distribution of support, of food aid to the widows being a big issue there. But Paul is saying here that really those who have widows in their family, the family needs to support them. They need to be relating to these widows as caring for them, and so demonstrating the faith of Jesus. He says very strongly, Paul says at one point to Timothy very strongly, he says if someone doesn't care for his own household, for those who are in need, then he's denying the faith. He's acting as if he has no faith at all. And so this is very clear indication that Paul is expecting the families of those who are in need, the family of those widows who are in need, to take care of them as a sign of the good news of Jesus, as a sign of the way that Jesus is. But Paul says there are going to be those widows who don't have any form of support, and so he gives directions as to how widows should be addressed. He is, first of all, says that a widow needs to really be without support, really no one in the family to look after her, and also needs to be 60 years of age. Now, in Paul's day, to reach 60 years of age meant that she was an old woman. This was an old person, and really, therefore, needed that care. But he talks about younger widows who are possibly able to still find other means of support, able to marry again, able to have children. He says, don't treat those in the same way as the older widows, because those who are younger, those who've lost their relationships, they have an opportunity to build relationships afresh. This may seem quite difficult for us to understand in our 21st century way of appreciating things, but Paul is writing in a first century situation, and his major concern is for care, and also for the church not to be overburdened with the needs of people, because there's no social security in these times, there are no pensions, and so really the church is called on to provide. But Paul says let the family first provide, and then let the church provide for those who really are in need. There has to be some sort of means testing here, and Paul sets a limit to it very practically. And then he talks about the elders of the church, and he seems to be referring here to leaders, because he says that the leaders who teach and those who work in the delivering of the word of God, those who are speaking, he says are worthy of double honor. And the words he uses here imply, or they even are explicit about the fact that he's talking about remuneration. He's talking about those who are supported living from the gospel. We know that elsewhere Paul talks about those who live from the gospel should be supported. And so here he says that those who are teaching are worthy of double honor. He says you shouldn't muzzle the ox while he's treading the grain. This is something he's used elsewhere as well. He's basically saying support those who are involved in teaching and in study, so that they can give themselves wholeheartedly to the study of the scriptures. And then Paul has some personal words to say at the end of chapter 5 to Timothy himself. He particularly directs him not to act out of favoritism, not to show, not to be dealing with people in a way because they're his mates or because they're people that he favors. He's saying that he needs to be careful of the accusation of favoritism. And he also addresses Timothy's own personal health needs. He says, you've been just drinking water. Maybe Timothy's been drinking water so as not to offend some people around him or to appear to be in good standing with the community. But Paul says, take some wine because of your stomach troubles. And he's saying to Timothy, don't be guided, don't be held by what other people think, but actually, if you need to take this, then do take it. And this isn't going to be seen as something bad for you, but actually this is something good, because you are seeking to do good things. In the family of Jesus Christ, in the community of Messiah, we are blessed to have this sense of care for one another. We are one another's brothers and sisters. We are those who treat one another as Jesus would treat us. And therefore today, as we go into another day of walking with brothers and sisters in community, let's be sure and have their needs in our heart, and let's be sure that we are caring for them as part of the household of God. Have a very good October 20th.